possible. My name is Georgine, Auma, and this is my sign name. It's a hand-shaped G on the chest. I'm the founder and director of Studio KSL at eKitabu. My hair is braided. My skin color is a bit chocolate. I am wearing a blue suit with a white t-shirt, which is branded Digital Storytime. I'm in white shoes. I'm slightly hippie. I wear a big smile, and that's who I am. So thank you so much. It's nice to have all of you here to discuss this topic on inclusive education for learners with disability. I'll introduce the panel. I'll allow each of them to introduce themselves and tell us a bit about the work that they're doing. We can start with Sheilah.
Good afternoon. My name is Sheilah Lutta. I work in the Ministry of Education Headquarters, Nairobi, Directorate of Special Needs Education. I am an Assistant Director of Education. In the Directorate, I'm in charge of ICT integration in the education of our students with disabilities, adaptation of teaching and learning resources, adapted sports, and also sensitization on inclusive education and special needs education. And I've also been nominated on several TWGs. Of most importance for me now is representing the students with disabilities in the Climate Action Change project, which is housed at the First Lady's office in Nairobi. I am a tall lady, 5.7 specifically, plus size, dressed in a brownish, greenish and bluish dress and a waterfall to back it up. I'm in navy blue shoes. My skin is chocolate, and I believe I have a beautiful smile. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheilah. We can hand over to Dr. Homiyar.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the most difficult session of the day, post-lunch. So keep your voices going. Just give us an indication, especially me, because I won't realize if you are dozing. My name is Dr. Homiyar. I represent Benetech. Benetech is an international NGO based out of the US, and we serve more than 100,000 individuals with print disability across the globe. I head Benetech's operations across Asia and Africa. Middle-aged, in my 50s, having lost most of my hair on my head, slightly plumpy. People call me a little fat. I don't mind that. Built on the heavier side, weighing around 95 kgs, so be aware of me. And I am visually impaired, having lost my vision due to retinitis pigmentosa. Over to you, David.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. How great is this conference? Did you see the dancing yesterday? Putting something like this on is an amazing challenge. We are grateful to inABLE and all the sponsors. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you. No small task. A few years ago, we put on a conference for the visually impaired in Addis, and about 450 people came. And we know how hard it is to bring everyone together, so we're very grateful to be here. Thank you. My name is David Satterthwaite. I'm from Perkins School for the Blind in Boston. I look forward to sharing our experience with you today. I am a gentleman of light skin with a boring gray suit, but I have a purple lining, little color to keep things interested. I wish my gray hair also had a little purple, but it does not. Thank you all so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Over to you, Valerie.
Thank you very much, David. My name is Valerie Olesia, and I'm an assistive technology computer instructor with inABLE Africa, based in Thika. Yeah, our aim is to empower youths with visual impairment through assistive technology, digital literacy, and inclusion. So a black African woman. On the cover page of your notebook, that's me. Yes. So today I'm wearing a maroon dress with black shoes and with dark purple braids. Thank you.
Thank you, my panelists. I forgot to mention one thing, that I am deaf. So the voice you're hearing is of Susan Thu, who is my sign language interpreter. So anyway, this is an amazing panel, and they have vast experience in the area of inclusive education for learners with disability. I know most of the African countries are really trying to advocate for inclusion, and we have great legislations to foster this, but the big question remains, how can we make inclusive education a reality for learners with disability? So my panelists will be answering that. So, you're welcome to comment on that. I'll start out with Sheilah. You're working with the government, Jogo House B. So the government has inclusive education policy for learners with disability. So how can we make the translation of inclusive policies and to make them as actionable strategies to make sure that there's implementation of the diverse needs of students or learners with disability?
Thank you, Georgina. And I wish to say that the government of Kenya is keen on inclusion for students with disabilities, and the aspect of education, and not just education, but accessible and relevant education, is captured in our constitution. And at the ministry headquarters, we have the sector policy for learners and trainees with disabilities. While the policy is anchored on inclusive education, we don't wish away specialized education. So it is with that backup, because knowing that policy gives direction on how to implement strategies, interventions, and also captures the relevant persons, we have gone the collaborative way, where we are working with different stakeholders to make sure that inclusion is done, not just for students with disabilities, but also for the marginalized, vulnerable, anyone who is vulnerable and hard to reach. At first, when we launched the policy, our concentration was on students with disabilities. But we realized as the Ministry of Education that we had students who may not have disabilities, but are facing different barriers in accessing and transiting within the education sector because of various reasons. And so for us as government, it is important that we establish policies that agree with practice, because we know that you may have a policy that clashes with the existing legislation, or a policy that bars a particular group of people to access education and other services, and that will be very detrimental, and it would have a huge impact. So in the spirit of inclusion, the government is working hard to make sure that the curriculum is accessible. If you look at the competency-based curriculum framework, we have the age-based curriculum pathway, and we have the stage-based curriculum pathway. So learners with disabilities who may not thrive in the age-based curriculum pathway with the necessary adaptations then follow the stage-based curriculum pathway with provisions for vocational training and activities of daily living. We have also reviewed the Kenya Diploma Education Teacher Curriculum and Early Childhood Education Curriculum, and inclusive education is one of the major units. We are also working to make sure that all government structures speak to inclusion, right from the home, institution, locally, regionally, and nationally. We have done a lot of sensitization, because most of the time people have blamed Kenya for coming up with so many policy documents and putting them on the shelves. So we are fronting for development of relevant, accessible policies that can be disseminated and implemented so that whatever we have captured in our policies can also be portrayed in the implementation at all levels. Thank you, Georgine.
Thank you, Sheilah. We are truly happy about the work that you're doing at Jogoo House, and we know for a fact that documenting policy work and implementing are two different things. And so we will try to achieve what you have documented in the education sector, right? We also know that it's impossible to achieve inclusive education without the teachers who are the experts in inclusive education. So I'll hand over to Homiyar, who will talk about the teacher training and how we can achieve inclusive education. Sorry, Dr. David.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I prepared a few remarks, if I may. The presentation, is that Mr. Hussain? Thank you all so much for this moment together. I'm David Satterthwaite from Perkins School for the Blind. We work all over the world. We do not work in Africa. I hope what we have to share is relevant for you all, and I look forward to answering any questions. At Perkins, we believe that any child can learn anywhere. However, as this audience knows better than most children with disabilities do not have accessible quality education. In India, Julie was one of these children. You see her there in the middle, smiling with her beautiful smile. And at the age of 7, she'd never been to school because there wasn't a school that could meet her needs. So the question becomes, how do we provide quality, accessible education for children like Julie? And how do we do this in a systematic way that is transformative for children with disabilities? Together with our partners in 16 countries around the world, we are working to show that that is possible. Through our model program approach, we are transforming education and delivering systematic change at scale. We are delivering model programs, which are schools that first adopt best practices and then teach them nationally in their region to other schools in order to have systemic change. To develop these model programs, we partner with governments, schools, families, and communities, and we support existing schools to measurably improve the quality of the access to learning. We also coach these schools so they can work with schools in their area to spread best practice. This is a very simple process in 3 steps. First, we work with the school in partnership to assess the quality of the education. Second, together in partnership, we build an action plan. And then throughout the year, we do intensive training, coaching, and mentoring with the teachers, the educators, and the staff in order to improve quality for the children. Through our support and over time, these model programs develop the capacity to share best practices with others. Here is an example of a school in Mexico. When we first started working in this school, the children with disabilities were grouped separately and a rehabilitation approach was taken to education. Today, we're implementing inclusive best practices, adopting materials to children's unique needs, and fostering inclusion with their families and their communities. While we, as Perkins, were founded 200 years ago, and many people know us because Helen Keller graduated from Perkins. I know she is a hero to many. She certainly is to me. We have now reached over 1.2 million children last year alone in 16 countries, and we are ready to do more. Pardon me. So you remember Julie. Here she is entering her classroom for the first time in her life. So we look forward to this discussion, and we believe that children all over the world can be helped like Julie, and that every child can learn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. We've heard about inclusive education and what we need to do, policy documentation. We need to empower the teachers to have the appropriate skills, and also to implement for inclusive education. But after inclusive education, then what happens? We need to include the children with disabilities. So I now invite Dr. Homiyar. So he'll talk about transitioning from inclusive education and also how that they can transition that to employment.
Thank you. Are we all still awake? Yes. Thank you. Because this is one of the most important pieces of the equation that probably this conference has been revolving around. How do we include children with disabilities, and especially in this case, print disabilities, into mainstream education? That's point one. And point two, in many countries we have seen that children with especially visual impairment go through education. That's the case in India. That's the case which we have seen in at least urban Kenya, where children go through academics, complete their graduation. But then there is this disconnect between the academics and employment. Are we preparing our students for employment, or are we preparing our students for just their academic qualifications? At least in India, we have seen this gap. Many students with visual impairment especially complete their graduation, complete even their masters. But when it comes to it, employment, they do not have the skill sets to be employed. For a second, if you can deliberate on what type of jobs can a person with blindness do, especially in a developing country scenario. Most of these jobs would require this individual to use assistive technology to read and write. Do we agree? Yes. You would be surprised that there are more than 183 different job roles that a person with blindness or low vision can do. 183 job roles. But the question is, are our children ready for these job roles? And probably the answer is no. Why? Because even today we foster a system of education which is specialized. In most of our developing countries, I keep on using developing countries because I don't want us to be confused with systems which are there in developed countries, because that's different. Developing countries do not have the resources, are still fighting for the rights of persons with disability to be honored. So in this situation, we need to understand that we cannot create a separate world for the blind or the visually impaired and then think that it is going to be sustainable. It's not. A simple example, and please don't take this personally, anybody sitting here, your views could be different than mine, but these are views that we have come to believe through our experience. In our schools, even today as we speak in India, children with visual impairment study Braille as the main medium of reading and writing. Nothing against Braille. It's a wonderful medium. But unfortunately, the wider world doesn't understand Braille. When the student steps out from this blind school, who's going to read Braille and communicate with the student in Braille? Nobody. If he wants employment, he needs to read and write in a way that the mainstream society understands. And that is only possible when you use assistive technology. So there comes a different problem. What type of assistive technology should we look into when we talk about a developing country scenario? So then these three words come up: affordable, accessible, and readily available. Unless we choose the right technology, we cannot import technology from the developed countries, which is super expensive, very difficult to maintain. Once it breaks down, it's almost throwaway. No, that's not the solution. So we need to look around us and see what is there within our communities, within our countries, that is affordable, accessible, and readily available. The answer is very simple. We have found in India that we have two simple pieces of devices that we can invest in the future. One is the humble Chromebook. The Chromebook serves you almost everything that a computer, a full-fledged computer can do at probably 1/3 the price. In India, we get it for around $200. Or the Android phone, which almost everybody has. India, which boasts of the largest penetration of Android devices in the world. So the Android phone, combined with a USB keyboard, gives you an equal, accessible option, around same price of $200. So that's one part of the equation. You got the device, but now you need content on that device. What would you read? Because unless, as Sheilah said, we do have content which is accessible, then it should be available to everyone. So then we have these resources like Bookshare, the world's largest online library, which provides access to 1.3 million books. And it's completely free for any individual with a bona fide print disability in any developing country across the globe. So we encourage people to use this huge resource which is there, and that will plug in your gap for accessible content. Countries like Kenya with their accessible curriculum, that can be uploaded on Bookshare. Why? Because once you upload it, you don't have to worry about distribution. Anybody with a reasonable internet connection can download it and then read it offline. Offline on what? Your Chromebook or your Android device or your Daisy player or your MP3 Mega Voice. All these devices are supported. Once we have these two components in place, we need the third component in place, and that is training our teachers and our students in the use of these devices. So when we have these three pillars in place, content, device, training, you are heading towards creating an inclusive environment. How? In a classroom, I'm talking about a mainstream classroom, where 50, 60 students are studying. Most of them do not have any disability or apparent disabilities. One or two of them are blind. These blind students, when they bring in their Chromebooks into the classroom, now the teacher is able to see what the child is reading or what the child is writing. There is no barrier now. So the mainstream teacher need not know Braille, or we need not be dependent on special educators to support the mainstream teacher, because in India we've seen a huge, huge shortage of special educators. So we are empowering the mainstream teacher to use assistive technology, mainstream technology, to be connected with the student. Another important point, the blind students who have to depend on scribes to write at this point in time now are able to write their own exams. The first step towards employment, because now you're able to write independently. Who's going to give you a scribe when you get a job? Nobody. So that's your first barrier. If you can't write, you can't become employable. So once this thing goes through, students become employable. They are reasonably included in the classroom. Yes, obviously there will be other systems which would be required, like tactile diagrams for concept learning. There would be Other systems required like adequate internet connectivity. People like Valerie need to be there in the system for training these students and helping the teachers to gain independence in use of their devices. So it's an ecosystem that we are creating. And once you create this ecosystem, believe me, it's extremely affordable compared to the current expenses that we incur running special schools. I'll pause here and pass it on back to Georgine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As I reflect back to a time where we were introducing the Faces of Africa, persons with disability, I had two questions on how can we be able to support the economy to sustainability, and I hope you've all heard about it, the opportunities that are there in supporting persons with disability, and you see that we can all witness how that we can transition or change the lives of persons with disability. So now I'll hand over to Valerie. Maybe you can talk to us about the role of technology in fostering learning and enhancing the experience of learners with disability.
Thank you very much, Gina, and I'm glad that my fellow panelists are speaking to this and giving very good insights about assistive technology, which is at the center of our triangle to foster inclusivity in the disability realm. And so I'll begin by sharing an experience, my personal experience, because I lost sight when I was 17 years old. That is a teenager in Form 3. And life wasn't that easy for me because I was thinking around what I've been doing in my academics and what is going to happen. I didn't know anything about Braille. I didn't know anything about mainstreaming disability and inclusion in the education sector, so I was wondering, is my education or my life done at this point? I almost ran into a depression thinking about the same. I denied being told the truth about having lost sight, and I almost lost everyone around me, excluding my parents, who were giving me the little hope that was remaining. And so assistive technology to me, sharing that personal experience, has been the driving force behind my success. And I'll tell you for sure, without assistive technology, I'll not be the person I am today, because I'm using assistive technology in almost everything that I do on a daily basis. Ranging from even conversing with some of you here whom we have shared contacts with. I use assistive technology on my Android phone, just like Homiyar shared. I use assistive technology in even walking around using my Satterthwaite can. I use assistive technology in just almost everything that I do, because when I lost sight, I told myself that life is not over until it's over. So assistive technology is very important. That is the adaptive and rehabilitative measures to ensure persons with disability have an upper hand to everything that they hold on to. And so in the education sector, to foster inclusivity, we use screen readers for those who are blind. Screen readers range from JAWS, that is job access with speech, NVDA, that is non-visual desktop access, to ensure this person is able to read or operate their computers independently, so that they can research on their own, they can do everything on their own, to ensure that they are not left behind, as the slogan here is, nothing without us, nothing for us without us, right? And so we ensure that these learners, just like I can cite in my case as an assistive technology computer instructor at Thika, we ensure that this learner is able to learn through using a computer independently, so that they can also equally fit in the education sector just like any other person. So we ensure that at every given point, we connect this learner to the screen reader, so that that is their personal aid while using the computer. And so this enables these learners, as we use the Chromebooks, just as Homiyar is saying, in the classroom, they use the Chromebook independently to ensure that everything that is set in the education sector, be it an assessment, be it an assignment, be it anything that they need to access, they access it using the Chromebook, which is an assistive device that enables them access what they need to. And so it doesn't even end there. At the tertiary institutions, everything right now after COVID-19, everything was going digital. And so persons with disability are not left behind. Even the persons who are deaf or hard of hearing, they have assistive technology that will help them even listen or hear what the lecturer is saying. Those who have hard of hearing, they have hearing aids that help them connect with their lecturers and be able to get what the lecturer says. Those with blindness in a lecture, you can ask a question, how do these people even thrive? Julio, for example, is a lawyer, and so many others that I will not give examples today. They do very well, even myself in the education sector, and we ask ourselves, how does this happen? It's through assistive technology, nothing else. No miracle, no nothing, but assistive technology is what is making us be what we are. And so the role of assistive technology in the in fostering inclusivity in the education sector is majorly what we depend on. And I'll ask everyone to make sure that you are inclusive at your place of work, at your education center, at your place of everything that you do regarding persons with disability. Make sure that you make it as accessible as possible, sharing information online, doing one-on-one conversation, make sure that this is made accessible to ensure that this person that you're interacting with is not left behind at any given point of your interaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. And as we were speaking, we talked about technology as a savior and how we can improve the life of persons with disability. So our last question, I'll throw it to the entire panel, because we cannot achieve inclusive education without involving the parents, engaging the community. So how can we effectively engage the parents and the community to achieve inclusive education for learners with disability? Anyone can pick up to respond.
Can I take this?
Yeah.
Thank you. Before I answer your question directly, I'll just connect with what Sheilah said. It's so very important that when governments design their policies for inclusive education, they are guided the right way and by right organizations and by people who understand what is being done. Because if the policy at the government level is confused, which is generally in many countries, because the bureaucrats, I don't blame them, it's not their subject. They're not supposed to be creating rules and regulations and policies for a group of individuals which have different needs. So they are guided by other organizations. And organizations sometimes, due to their vested interests, guide these policies. We just need the right accommodation, the right rules and regulations, the right opportunities, and then we should expect people with disabilities to perform at par with any other person. We cannot have concessions laid out. The moment we have concessions, we are going back to the charity model. So if you have given Valerie the technology that she needs, then we should expect that Valerie should perform at par with any other individual or even better than that individual. If that is our goal.
I know our time is up. I'm told our time is up. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to the panelists. I'm told our time is up. I wish we had more time to continue with the discussion. So unfortunately, I have to end this at this point. Thank you for sharing your experience, your wisdom, and your knowledge with all of us here. And for the audience, thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you.